Hi, it's Ray from Proshaper Sheet Metal in Charlton, Massachusetts, and I think this is 10D on the building of the all-aluminum Jaguar bonnet for E-type. So as we left off last, I did this little weld here, and I welded the flange up. We still have this to do. Unfortunately, we're really low on time today. We had plans for doing 2 videos, but tonight I hope that maybe we just get this one done, and tomorrow we get the second one that we plan to do today. This one is going to be using the TIG welder, the Everlast TIG welder, to continue welding this up. It's all tacked. The last video we tacked it up, and after we weld it up, I am going to grind it properly. I think I showed how to grind in one of the other videos, but I'm going to be a little more detail in it tonight. I will do a weld grinding video that we will throw in at some point, and the other video they intended to do was different types of TIG welding techniques. So this is regarding welding aluminum sheet metal. So when you TIG weld on video and you put that video out on YouTube, immediately everybody has an opinion. There's a lot of different ways to TIG weld. Am I the world's best TIG welder? No, not by any way, shape, or form. You want to see some really outstanding TIG welding, go to Instagram. You're going to see some young guys on there with super unbelievable eyesight. And that's a big component of being able to TIG weld properly. If you've got young eyes, you can see better. If you can see better, you can do better. You have to have the eyesight, and you have to have the hand-eye coordination. You can't have shaky hands and all that. I'm lucky. My eyesight's still pretty decent. I use magnifiers. Even if it was perfect, I'd probably use magnifiers. So I've got to clean this up with the wire brush. I'm going to lay the bead down here, and we'll finish this up, and then we'll do the grinding. Tomorrow, that TIG welding video. What's in store in the TIG welding video? What I'll do is I'll do a very close joint sample on like 060 aluminum, and I'll fusion weld it. And then also I will do a weld that has a large gap on it and try to do it with the TIG. And you'll see what happens when you have a large gap. And then I'll do another sample piece with a large gap, but I'll put copper behind it, which will essentially give it a shielding in the back, and it'll make it a lot easier to do. And then I'll do a couple that have no pulse, some with pulse, some without pulse, and then we'll grind them and clean them up all after, and we'll put a torture test to them. And we'll number them, and you can see for yourself what kind of results you can expect and some of the real fine detail in those welds, and that's going to be tomorrow. But right now, let's weld this up. Now when you first start off, the panel is cold. It doesn't like to weld. So if you weld right, you start right here, it's going to play hard to get. It'll open up. There's no back gas condition here or anything. There's no copper or anything. A little oxygen will come through. So the best approach, I got a loose tungsten. The collet's not holding really well. Alright, let's check it. The best approach is when you're going to start in here like this, is to start where it's already welded, build some heat up over here, and then come right in. So that's what we're going to do. So there we have it. Now, the object is to try to make the smallest bead as possible. I wouldn't call that a really small bead. It's okay. It's going to be an easy cleanup. But let's look at the back side. The back side, we got pretty good drop through. There's a few spots that didn't get dropped through. That's where we started, right there. And it wasn't hot enough yet, so it didn't drop through. So I'll probably add a little rod there. This is the fusion weld that I did on that previously welded section. And you can see I got a lot of drop through here. That means that there was a lot of heat there. So I'm going to have to run this whole back here and now get this fused really nicely. It's good to do it all when it's nice and hot like that. It just likes to weld better with the heat. So I'm going to start here and go over, and then I'll try to get that little section. You got to be comfortable all the time. The chair is too high, so I'm going to lower it. That's that section. Let's see if we can get over here now. So there's the back side. Just got to get that flange now. Now the object is always to keep your tungsten really close to the weld. I try to do about a 1/16 of an inch, and every once in a while, if you're not paying attention fully, you'll dip the tungsten in the weld zone a little bit, and if that happens, sometimes you can get away with it and it won't wick on the tungsten, but sometimes it does. If it wicks on the tungsten, then you got to stop and grind the tungsten. So far tonight my hands have been steady, no problem. So we got a pretty nice weld. Let's see if we can tip this down just a little bit and I get that crotch there. Can you hold that, Mark? Yeah. So now we're fully welded, and we'll go over to another bench and we'll start processing this weld. We can do it by hand with a slapper and hammer and dolly, and we can also do it with the planishing hammer. We'll show both ways. I don't know if I'm going to get it totally finished because it takes a certain amount of time, but you'll get the idea. We'll clean up the easy part. This will be the easy part. This will be a little more complicated in here. We'll get that cleaned up, and like I said, I'm going to do a total grinding video at some point, because I find grinding is one of the least understood skill sets, and especially the people coming into the class. They don't really put the thought that's really required to do an excellent grinding work. It's a task, and they just want to get the grinding done. It's a task for sure, but you want to do it in a specific way that does the least amount of damage to your surrounding metals. So you want to isolate your grinding to a really narrow little strip, and there's a way to do that properly. So I'm going to show you that. But now we're going to move this over to the other bench, and we'll do the grinding and hammering over there. Alright, so here we are at the bench. We've got the weld, and I made myself a really nice, comfortable setup here. Always try to experiment and get yourself comfortable. Between two benches generally works good. What I didn't put on, do so far, was put a beater bag on. We're going to put a beater bag on right here, and that'll keep it from bouncing a little bit. So let me get a beater bag, 1 second. So beater bags are misnamed. They should be also called weight bags, because they do a really good job of holding the panel down, keep it from bouncing. So we're going to knock the top of these off here. We've got the Norton Blaze 50 grit Rolox. I use different size backing pads. This would be a 3-inch backing pad here, and this is a 3-inch that's been cut down. When I cut them down, I always cut them down, you can see on the back side, and I leave these little facets here, cut them about at 3/16 of an inch, and that removes all the part of the disc that's been heavily used, and this is pretty much all fresh here. Aluminum is sticky, it'll stick to the disc. Put a little bit of wax on. This is just standard candle wax, and I'm going to grind at the 12 o'clock position on the grinding disc, and I'm going to grind at a really low angle. The hose is always a problem. Try to get comfortable with your hose. And that low angle, I'm going to grind right with the weld, along the weld like this. Most people will grind across the weld like that, and they'll grind at a high angle because it seems to them to be more efficient, and they'll grind what I call eyebrows. Now, I've probably said this in a couple other videos, but I got to keep saying it again and again and again. Don't grind eyebrows. Don't grind on your parent metal on either side. You can tape it up. You see a lot of the really good panel shapers will put these nice pieces of tape here, clean the joint, and then they scotch bright, and it looks really nice. That's more of a presentation thing. I probably sand this all out and buff this when we're all done, when the whole thing is all completely assembled. Right now it's just a matter of getting this ground down properly, and properly means not doing damage to either side, and also not digging in where your weld is. You don't want to weaken the metal at the joint. This is popped up a little bit. It's going to need a little adjustment. So I can see there's a little bit of a plane change right here at the end. So that can be easily remedied by putting the dolly, it's a super low crown, I call it the bar of soap, put it over here, and I'll take my hammer or my slapper, and I'm going off dolly there. And that weld zone, because it's been hit on both sides, and as I went slow, is pretty soft. It might not be as soft as the gas welding weld zone, because when you gas weld, you're putting a ton of heat into the panel, and it anneals it essentially. But that moved really good now. That's nice and flush. I can look for other spots here. If in the process of welding, and it often happens, one side goes up like this, you can take advantage of that and grind it easily. If you try to grind it on the bottom side, when it's got a V like that, you'll end up hitting the parent metal on both sides and weakening it. So you don't want to grind it when it's in that condition. You can move it. So I'm a little peaked over here, so I can bring that down. I put the dolly on this side, I put the dolly on that side to hit in the middle, and that lowered it quite a bit. It needs a little bit more over here. Now, in the process of cleaning this up, you can't be worried about, oh my God, what if I stretch it too much and then I got a big bump there? How am I going to deal with it? That's no problem whatsoever. Remember, metal, clay, same thing. So all you got to do to fix that is, after we get this all cleaned up, say there's a little spot that's proud here, we'll take the lead shot bag, put it underneath, take the slapper, get the torch over here, the acetylene torch, we'll heat it up a little bit, and we'll just go with the soft bag dolly underneath. The shot bag dolly acts as like a universal surface, gives you that support, and it'll allow that peaked area just to shrink right down. Now sometimes you have to do them a couple times, but they'll go right down. You got to cool it totally to get it to room temperature. Sometimes you got to spritz of water on it, or let it sit for 10 minutes to cool to room temperature, and then you'll have a good assessment of where you are with your surface. But the important thing is, don't worry about how bad the panel might go up or down. Up means overdevelopment, down might be underdevelopment. Both of those are fixable problems, and like tonight we're running really late. Mark has got to leave in a few minutes, so I'm going to try to get this ground and both sides, and let's see what we can do. So I put my shield on, and we'll start grinding. See how there's no grinding on either side here? It's been concentrating mostly right on the weld. I feel with my finger constantly to find out where I'm at. So a little bit more. We don't have to bring it down to flush right on the first try. I'm just going to do it here. That's all we got time for. I'm going to flip it over and then grind the underside and get that. It's still a little bit proud. I can feel it a little bit, but then I'm going to squash this in. This is a little bit shrunk because then whenever you weld, the surface area will shrink a little bit. So we're going to flip this over. And we'll grind that right here now. Now on the other side, that's the most important side. If you have a little bit of a low where it kind of sunk in, when you had a little bit too much heat, which would mean oftentimes that you have a positive on this side, the drop through, you can leave some of that drop through there and just hammer it and cold forge it back up, so you don't have to go back and fill it with another little bit of welding. And I like being positive on both sides because then I don't have any little divots showing. And as you can see, there's no opens or anything here. It's positive all the way. Super nice weld. How would that weld be better? Well, if I was able to get less material on both sides, that would be perfection. That's like you know, golfing a perfect game, or bowling a perfect game, or hitting a home run every time you get up at the plate. It just doesn't happen. You make some days you're really good and some days you're not. So this is the worst of all situations because this is a job that takes a lot of concentration to get it correct, and I'm under a time demand. Mark is giving me pressure. Hurry up, we got to get this thing done. So now I think I will purposely overdevelop a spot so that when we come back on this panel to finish it up totally, we'll show you how to do that shrinking. So I've got that ground down pretty decent. There's a little bit of positive there. And I'm just going to take my favorite snap-on hammer. I bought this probably when I was like 15, and what was that, 1966. We'll grind it a little more. And then we'll look at the front side now. Now Mark, besides being my cameraman, is also my IT guy. He builds my website. And when we hit 10,000, we were able to put the Teespring banner, or the Teespring point of sale on all the YouTube videos. So now we can sell Teespring t-shirts. We got the Proshaper t-shirts and hoodies and caps. And if you want to see more videos, it helps to purchase some of our Proshaper products, also at proshaper.com. I want to thank you very much for that. We've got a lot of good action this weekend, and especially in these times with the virus, the classes are going to be diminished for sure, so I can use a little more sales. So just take a look at what we have to offer, and I thank you in advance. Alright, so now we'll hit that again. And you could put it in a Planishing Hammer, The Planishing Hammer does a really nice job. It's a little scary in the Planishing Hammer going through here because if you use your top die here, it's going to bite all over the place. You have to put a special top die in to get through in this way. Oftentimes it's a safer bet just to use a hammer and dolly or a slapper and dolly. Alright, I'm rubbing my finger on there. I'm going into the parent metal just a little bit to blend all the edges of the weld out. And there doesn't seem to be any drop or anything. It's a nice grind so far. The weld is good. And now we'll switch to the little rotor here with the 150. This is 80 rather, I'm sorry. 80, and these are Nortons also. I like Nortons. That's hook and loop, little 2-inch. I make it myself. I'll show you how I do that in the next video maybe. These go flying off sometimes, so you want to wear your eye protection. That's looking pretty sweet. There's a little bit of the edge of the weld showing right there. Maybe it's a grind mark, I don't know. But now we're going to follow up with the 120. Let's get a 120. And this is not hard to do. It's just following the correct grinding procedures. And you see I've cut that down so it's just in this little zone right here. I don't have any what I call eyebrows, no grinding like that. And then I can follow it up with the orbital sander. This little detail orbital sander with 120 also. And this leaves a really nice finish on it. So that's that side. Now we'll do the other side and finish that off. We've got a little positive here still. We've got to get that. So I'm going to give it a little bit more with the snap-on hammer. Just light little taps, and I bought this in 1966. In a few more months it'll be paid off. That side cleaned up pretty nice too. That's the edge of the weld right there. If you sand it a little bit more, you could get that out. I don't want to weaken it, so I'm not going to go after it. If you're a little bit more careful, you can make sure that doesn't happen. That's just the way you grind it. That's the underside. So there's the top side. And it is a little bit proud there because I hit it a little too much probably. But it's not a problem. We're going to finish grinding this in the next video. And we'll address some of these highs and lows. There's a few little defects here and there on the panel. Before we weld this to the next, to that center bulge, the center section, we have to get the edge tipped properly. We're going to get the angle in here. This is going to need a little shrinking here to pop this up. We're going to check this gauge all the way, and we'll get this all this surface fine-tuned. If there's any little flaws, we're going to find them. And I just want to reiterate again and again that no matter what condition you have, you can get it better and better and better. Now, if you're building these for a living, you'll find all the little troublesome spots or where to pay more attention and stuff, and you'll tune your procedures and techniques, and you can probably turn these panels out perfect every single time. When you're doing them on camera into a time constraint, sometimes you're going to make a few little mistakes. If you're doing it in your two-car garage, you are definitely going to be making some mistakes. Don't be afraid of making the mistakes. The mistakes are part of the process, and they're easily fixed. So I hope you enjoyed the video tonight. It's Ray Schelin again from Charlton, Massachusetts. Thank you for watching. Please keep the comments coming. We're going to try to keep making more and more videos. We're always under time constraints, so you got to understand that. So thanks again.